In 1776, Adam Smith published an inquiry into the nature and causes of the wealth of nations. While he is often remembered as the father of capitalism and the architect of the invisible hand, Smith was, first and foremost, a moral philosopher. His economic theories were not ends in themselves, but means toward improving the human condition. The quote, "No society can surely be flourishing and happy, of which the far greater part of the members are poor and miserable," serves as a vital corrective to the modern misconception of Smith as a proponent of greed is good. It establishes a moral floor for economic success, asserting that the health of a civilization is measured not by the opulence of its elite, but by the dignity and comfort of its working majority. To understand Smith's assertion, we must look at the prevailing economic thought of his time, mercantilism. Under mercantilism, a nation's wealth was measured by its gold reserves and its ability to maintain a positive balance of trade. In this framework, low wages were often seen as a benefit because they kept production costs down, making exports more competitive. Smith fundamentally rejected this. He argued that the purpose of production is consumption. If those who produce the goods, the laborers, cannot afford to consume them, the system is fundamentally broken. Smith was writing at the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, observing a world where the wealth of nations was rising, yet the misery of the masses remained a constant threat. Smith's choice of words, flourishing and happy, is deliberate. He was a product of the Scottish Enlightenment, which emphasized the science of man. Flourishing, in a biological or botanical sense, a flourishing plant is one that has the nutrients to grow and reach its potential. For a society, flourishing means upward mobility, health, and the expansion of human capabilities. Happiness, Smith believed, was tied to social connection and security. In his earlier work, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, he argued that humans have a natural sympathy, what we now call empathy, for one another. If the majority of a population is poor and miserable, it creates a psychological and social rot. A society where most people live in a state of constant anxiety over their survival cannot be stable, nor can it be considered a success, regardless of how many billionaires it produces or how much bullion is in its central bank. Smith was perhaps the first to articulate the economic benefits of a well-paid workforce. He argued against the starvation wage for several reasons: productivity and incentive. Smith noted that workers who are well-fed and hopeful are more productive than those who are malnourished and despairing. When a worker sees a path to improving their own condition, they apply more industry or effort to their tasks. High wages, therefore, are an investment in the efficiency of the economy. Internal market strength. If the far greater part of society is poor, the domestic market remains small. By ensuring that workers have disposable income, a nation creates a massive internal demand for goods, which in turn drives further innovation and production. This is the circular flow of a healthy economy. Social stability. Smith recognized that extreme inequality leads to civil unrest. A society divided between a tiny opulent minority and a miserable majority is a society on the brink of revolution or collapse. Justice, for Smith, was the main pillar that upholds the whole edifice. If justice is violated by leaving the majority in squalor, the edifice of society must eventually crumble. There is a powerful element of reciprocity in Smith's logic. He writes, "It is but equity, besides, that they who feed, clothe, and lodge the whole body of the people should have such a share of the produce of their own labor as to themselves be tolerably well fed, clothed, and lodged." This is a moral argument based on fairness. If the laborers are the ones providing the fundamental necessities of life, food, shelter, and clothing, it is a logical and moral absurdity for them to be the ones lacking those very things. Smith views the economy as a social contract. When the contract fails the majority, it loses its legitimacy. Today, as global GDP reaches heights Smith could never have imagined, his warning resonates more than ever. We see a world where GDP grows, but real wages stagnate. In many developed nations, productivity has detached from compensation, leading to a working poor class. The miserable middle. Even in wealthy societies, the cost of flourishing, education, healthcare, and housing has outpaced income, creating a new form of precarious existence. If Smith were alive today, he would likely look at our massive stock market indexes and ask, but what of the people? Are they flourishing, or are they merely surviving? He would argue that a high GDP is a vanity metric if it does not translate into the general welfare of the population. Critics often use Smith's invisible hand to argue against government intervention or social safety nets. However, Smith never intended the market to be a lawless vacuum. He believed the market was a tool to achieve the goal mentioned in the quote, a flourishing and happy society. When the market fails to deliver this, when it leads to monopolies that crush the poor or systemic misery, Smith was not against regulation. He was a critic of crony capitalism, which he called the mercantile system, and argued that the law should always favor the workmen when there is a dispute with the masters, as the masters have more leverage. Smith understood that poverty is not just a lack of money, it is a lack of status and dignity. In The Theory of Moral Sentiments, he noted that the greatest part of our happiness arises from the consciousness of being beloved. Poverty, in Smith's view, often renders a person invisible to society. The poor man is shamefaced and overlooked. A society where the majority feel this shame cannot be happy, because happiness requires a sense of belonging and mutual respect. When we ignore the poverty of the majority, we are effectively severing the social bonds that make a community a society rather than just a collection of individuals. Adam Smith's legacy is often reduced to a caricature of cold, calculating self-interest. Yet the heart of his work beats with a profound concern for the common man. His statement about the flourishing and happy society serves as the ultimate benchmark for any economic system. An economy is not a scoreboard of wealth. It is a system for organizing human life. If that system leaves the majority in misery, it is failing its primary objective. To truly honor Smith's vision, we must move beyond measuring success through aggregate figures and begin measuring it through the lived reality of the far greater part. True prosperity is shared prosperity. A nation is only as rich as its poorest citizens are secure. As Smith reminds us, the wealth of a nation is not found in its coffers, but in the well-being of its people.
Subscribe to this YouTube channel and share the video.